Carroll, bringing it forward. Thompson's making the run. Carroll hangs on to it though. Still Davy Carroll. Could go all the way here. Oh, what a goal!
Hello, I'm Phil Catchpole and welcome to this week's Ringing the Blues. Coming up on this week's show, we have all the action and reaction from the heavy defeat at Ewood Park.
Armstrong is through on a hat-trick and does get his hat-trick. It's 5-0 to Rovers.
There is an interview with Chairboys and Blackburn legend Super Simon Garner.
I got the blame for it, but I can honestly say I wasn't involved.
I chat with Wycombe fan and football commentator Joe Shennan about how to survive in the Championship.
It is a marathon and not a sprint.
But first, let's take off for Mexico City and the results.
We are ringing the blues from Mexico City. My name is Uri, and here are the results for the Championship League. Coventry City 3, Queen's Park Rangers 2, Nottingham Forest 0, Cardiff City 2, Blackburn Rovers 5, Wycombe Wanderers 0, Brentford 3, Huddersfield Town 0, Luton Town 2, Derby County 1, Middlesbrough 1, Bournemouth 1, Norwich City 2, Preston North End 2, Reading 2, Barnsley 0, Rotherham United 0, Millwall 1, Sheffield Wednesday 0, Watford 0, Swansea City 0, Birmingham City 0. Ay, 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 mis amigos, and now for Chairboys Spanish. Well, it was painful this week. Do you agree with me? So, learned, aprender, to learn, aprender, lesson, lecciones, lesson, lecciones, hard, duro, hard, duro. We have learned, hemos aprendido, some hard, unas duras, championship lessons, lecciones de la championship. So, we have learned some hard championship lessons. Hemos aprendido unas duras lecciones de la championship. But you know, we will learn from that. We will learn from the defeat. 5-0, it's okay, boys. And let's move along. Let's keep moving. It's only the beginning. So, Chairboy Spanish this week, we have learned some hard championship lessons. Back to England with my amigo Phil Catchpole on the Ringing the Blues headquarters studios. Adios!
Wycombe's first away trip was a long journey to face Blackburn Rovers. It was always going to be an emotional day for the Ainsworths.
My mum and dad have been stuck in the house for a long time. And I got my brother up there and nieces and you know it's going to be a special moment. I think especially for my dad who took me 6 years old. I still remember the early games. I've still got my season ticket stubs. I've still got my kit that I wore and photos.
And Blackburn come again with Dolan into the box. Dolan goes down looking for a pen and it's given. And Wycombe here have really caused their own problems. They couldn't defend the corner. They had chances to clear, couldn't get the ball away. And then Dolan skips into the penalty area and goes down. Banks had a good look at the referee and then pointed to the spot. The right foot of Armstrong. Short run up and puts it low into the bottom corner to give Blackburn the lead. Blackburn 1, Wycombe Wanderers 0. Brereton, he's running at Stewart, puts it back into Holtby, Holtby to Dolby, this is a good move, good save from Allsop, makes no mistake with the seconds, and it's Blackburn 2, Wycombe 0, and there's the acrobatic, and it's into the bottom corner. Tyrese Dolan has been a massive problem, and he's assisted one and scored another. Blackburn 2, Wycombe 0. Blackburn can counter with Brereton. Brereton running through the centre circle. Patterson's trying to catch up. He's got Rothwell on the outside. It's a poor pass. Rothwell across the area, and there it is, 3-0. And Armstrong won't score an easier one than that this season. Classic counter-attack from Blackburn Rovers. Rothwell with the slide rule pass, and Armstrong just doesn't miss those. Blackburn Rovers 3, Wycombe Wanderers 0. Blackburn clear though onto the centre spot, and Darius Charles has taken a very heavy touch indeed and has now pulled down Adam Armstrong, and that is going to be a red card for Darius Charles, who made the mistake, and then Darius Charles pulled the man down and can have no complaints over that. So Wycombe 3-0 down to 10 men, and they're taking it short, and Wycombe have gone to sleep. Dolan inside the penalty area, dancing around. He's got a narrow angle, he puts it to the edge of the area, and Rossville comes in with the shot. It's deflected, great save, second ball comes in, the flag stays down, and Derek Williams celebrates his first goal of the season. It's Blackburn Rovers 4, Wycombe 0. Armstrong is short on a hat-trick and does get his hat-trick. It's 5-0 to Rovers, and Adam Armstrong stands in front of the empty stand and holds his arm out, and that's 3 for him. Fantastic finish, really. You'd have backed him all the way, clean through, left-footed strike. Blackburn Rovers 5, Wycombe Wanderers 0.
Gareth, welcome to the Championship.
Yeah, it felt like that today. Obviously last week we were very close and probably the best side, but today we started really well. First 15 minutes I thought we were really in it, and then three chances for Blackburn. They scored all 3, you know, and that's going to be it in the Championship. You know, they're a good side, very clinical, went forward really well, but on top of that we made some silly mistakes. I mean, the last goal is simply us not following in a shot, and that's not us, you know. We don't do that, but I think we were shell shocked to feeling sorry for ourselves a little bit, and I'll be putting that right, you know, no doubt. We've got a long way to go. It's a positive that it's happened now, because I want to really make sure the boys know what it takes to play in this Championship. It's a tough league. There's some cracking players, and yeah, we've been taught a bit of a lesson today.
You said in one of your interviews before the season started that the first 3 or 4 Championship games would really sort of help you get your head around this division. What have you taken from today's game? Yeah,
I mean, the clinical finishing of some of the boys. You know, Armstrong's a hell of a player. He's scored 3 great goals there, and but you know, we cannot give chances. We can't give people chances, and we did that today too much. You know, when it went to 10 men, it became obviously one-way traffic. But that clinical sort of prowess in front of goal that they had for their 3, it just blew us away, and we felt sorry for ourselves. We didn't feel like we could get back in the game. I'm missing a couple of key players still. I think Dominic reads the game really well in that midfield area. Bayo obviously to come back, and Curtis Thompson. So we have got players. I mean, Uchi's come on today, and Ryan Tafazzoli making his debut for us. So some real positives, but we've got to learn quick, and we will be doing. That's our job, you know. Me and Dobbo will be properly picking the bones out of that now, and I'm sure my journey home will be a lot of watching a video that I don't really want to watch, but have to do it. Want to make sure we're better for the next game, and that game's going to come thick and fast.
A painful one to watch. Do you think there were some tactical mistakes by yourself and Dobbo in the build-up to this game?
We spoke to the boys about that, and no, we employed a very similar shape that we did to Brentford, but we didn't execute it as well, and so. You know, we spoke to the boys. The boys were saying they didn't think it was shaped that undone us. It was a couple of errors. We think there's a foul in the build-up to the penalty, but you know, we give the ball away for 1 goal. We're too deep on another one. We didn't follow in the ball on another one. We can actually put these down to mistakes, and as long as we can do that, put them right, we'll be a better team for it.
Why do mistakes happen higher up than they do in League One?
Right, I think if you play against League One and League Two sides, the turnover of the ball, the transition of the ball is much more frequent. You know, at this level, the teams are good enough to keep the ball really, really well, and I think that they create more chances at this level. And yeah, I mean, it was just shell shock for us. Really, you know, they're not going to let you rest. They're not going to let you sort of feel sorry for yourself. They're going to punish you, and that's what happened today in the Championship. And we're going to have to get used to it thick and really quick, and just make sure that we learn from today. It's good it's happened this early in the season, Phil, because I think if it happens around the middle of the season or towards the end, we haven't learned. I said to the boys, what would you give now to get back out there at 3 o'clock, knowing what you know now, and having another go at it? And they all said, yeah, really, really want to do that. As long as they got that attitude, I'm fine.
And from a personal point of view, a big day for you, Gareth. You've worn your special red snakeskin boots. They'd never faced a defeat until today. Yeah. What happens now?
If it was going to be anywhere, it was away at Ewood Park, so they may well have to be retired. But no, it's definitely a lot more than what I wear that makes a difference, and it's what I say now and what I can see on the video and what the boys' reaction is next week. That's what's going to be important. I'm really looking forward to being on TV against Swansea next week. I've got some big team selection problems now because no one's really put themselves in a good frame today. we'll have to make sure that we get it right next week.
So, a real championship lesson from Rovers, and later in the show we'll be talking to Joe Shennan about how to survive at this level. Coming into the game, Rovers fans were worried about being frustrated by Wycombe. Well, here's what they had to say afterwards. Bruce.
Wycombe looked poor, to be fair. They've clearly gone into this match thinking they could get something out of it, and that's played right into our hands.
Exiled Rover.
Wycombe will need to learn from this, as they don't have the quality to play this openly against championship-level teams away from home. We had 3 shots on target in the first half and scored all of them.
DE.
That was superb, but we have to remember that Wycombe are the playoff-promoted side, and even then they only got into the playoffs on an arithmetic adjustment. They started really well, but we held out for the first 10 minutes.
Philip L.
We took the P today. I felt sorry for Wycombe in the end. They were chasing shadows all day.
S8 and Blue.
As good a performance as we've had in a long time. Could have been 7 or 8. It's hard to tell if we made Wycombe look bad or if they're just... probably a bit of both.
Wing Wizard Windy Miller.
We'll have at least 40 tougher games than that this season, but I'm definitely going to enjoy it. What a performance. Clean sheet, 5 goals, and great team and individual displays. Superb job all round.
BRFC for life.
We've never struggled to score goals at this level, so if Wycombe have anything to worry about, it's that they didn't trouble us at the back.
Rover.
Excellent result, of course, and a totally dominant display against an absolutely dismal Wycombe side, who I suspect with their team and resources will do well to hit 20 points.
Rovers fan 99.
I knew it could be a beating for Wycombe early on when they were busting a gut to no avail. It takes one to know one, and how many times have we been there under Mowbray? We played smart and won smart. Having a go is admirable, but only if you don't have the resources and know-how to beat your opponent in a calculated manner, which we did today. That's the first time we've won in that manner for a long time. Superb stuff. Delighted.
Gareth Ainsworth isn't the only link between the Chairboys and Blackburn. Super Simon Garner is the record goal scorer for Rovers and also had a fantastic couple of seasons at Adams Park. I caught up with him the morning after the two sides met for the very first time.
I did have mixed emotions. I thought Blackburn would win the game, but I was disappointed it went to 5. I felt sorry for Gareth and the team yesterday. I mean, the job he's doing at that football club is unbelievable. And that's the club he started at. I think he started there as an apprentice when I was there playing there. So that was a shame for Gareth yesterday. I felt sorry for him.
Yeah, we talked about Gareth's time as a trainee. He got released on his 18th birthday, but he was saying in the build-up, we interviewed him about Blackburn, he said he remembered sitting on your knee as a young boy, as a Blackburn fan.
Well, I'm too old to remember that one.
We got to talk about Blackburn, all-time record goal scorer. As I got to Ewood Park yesterday, I saw Alan Shearer away, and I did think to myself, that really should be called Simon Garner way, really, shouldn't it?
Well, I think so, but I do have a road somewhere in Blackburn named after me, but I don't think it's near the ground.
Well, next time I'm up there, I shall go and find that and take a picture for you. Burnley, I remember Burnley playing Wycombe Wanderers. I think you were injured and they brought you out on the pitch to do the draw at half-time, and I don't think it went down too well. Tell us a bit about your love for Burnley, Simon.
I wouldn't call it love. I mean, Blackburn and Burnley don't get on at all. They've always had a rivalry, and it was funny that day because I said to the groundsman then, Jim Gardner, I said, don't go in at half-time, Jim. Watch what happens here. So I came out at half-time to do the draw, and I thought the Burnley fans was going to invade the pitch. They didn't like. I always used to score against them.
I've got on my notes here, you took a penalty at Ewood Park against Burnley and they were throwing bricks at you, is that right?
That's right, yes. There was. It was the old ground then, and there's pulling bricks off the back of the stand, throwing them on the pitch.
I mean, that's a hell of a compliment as a striker, isn't it?
Oh, it was great, and especially it was even better when I scored it.
Did you have to go off the pitch and then they had to sort of calm everybody down and then come on? I mean, you talk about a gap waiting to take a penalty. I mean, you've got to hold your nerve for a little bit of time there, haven't you?
Yeah, you have to take your time. I mean, I wasn't very good at penalties neither. I didn't like taking them. But when it was against Burnley, I thought, no, I'm taking these. And it took a bit of time, but I just decided where I was going to put it and just smacked it and went in.
There's a couple of things of folklore here with Burnley as well. Did you have a knife pulled on you by someone asking if you were Simon Garner?
I did. After the game at Burnley, I came out and I'd scored a winner, I think it was. And there was a Burnley fan when I came out the players' entrance and he had a knife with him and he said, "Are you Simon Garner?" I said, "No, he'll be out in a minute." And I think that's the fastest I've run all game.
Incredible. And this is my favourite one. Apparently when Burnley lost in the playoffs to Torquay, there was a plane flown over the ground saying "Forever in Rover's shadow" or something to that effect. And the rumour is that you were involved in that. You weren't flying it, were you?
I wasn't flying it and I wasn't involved. I got a lot of stick about that, I did. And I got the blame for it, but I can honestly say I wasn't involved.
Okay, I believe you. Right, let's move on to Wycombe Wanderers. Wycombe fans first saw you at Adams Park when you played for West Brom in that amazing 2-2 cup draw. I think it was on the TV as well that day. It was a great game, but it was the first time I'd seen you on the terrace as well as a fan. And I remember thinking, this guy can play a bit. That was a great cup tie, wasn't it? And the replay was pretty good too.
It was. I mean, the first game was great down at Adams Park. It was a really good game. And Wycombe surprised us. We didn't think they'd be that good, and there was a good side then. And I thought, oh, this is going to be a tough day today. And I didn't play in the replay, I don't think. I think I was injured in the replay. I'm not sure now. But we only just scraped through as well in the replay.
Yeah, it was 1-0, I think. And
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, Wycombe gave a good account of themselves. So, fast forward a bit, then after that game, when you found out that Wycombe were interested, then you must have been pretty excited to go and play for Martin O'Neill. Oh,
too right I was. I mean, I'd spoken to Martin. It took quite a while to get it done, actually. I mean, I've been frozen out at West Brom. The manager didn't want me there. Martin came in for me. And it took about 8 or 9 weeks to get the deal done. I mean, everything was sorted out deal-wise. It was just Martin just dragged his feet a bit. And I was phoning him up nearly every day saying, when am I getting these papers signed? I want to get down there. But once I got down there, I mean, he was a brilliant manager. And the players, the squad we had a great bunch of players. I mean, they come from part-time football into full-time football. And they was loving every minute of it. And it was just a great atmosphere in the dressing room.
Yeah, I remember being a fan and thinking, well, Wycombe are just unstoppable. First this season in the league, and we thought, well, we could have a chance of going up here. And, of course, we did. You signed in the February, I think, wasn't it, of that season?
Yeah, it was, yes. It was, yeah.
And you got some vital goals up there. But that playoff campaign was wonderful. And, your fingerprints were all over that playoff campaign, the semi-final and the final. I remember at the Carlisle game, I think the fans tried to invade the pitch then when you scored, didn't they?
I think they did as well, yeah. I think they did. I mean, I'll never forget them semi-finals and the final. They were 3 of the games I really enjoyed playing in during my career. I mean, they'll be in the top half a dozen games that I've played in throughout my career, so I really enjoyed them.
The Wembley game, I remember you scored a goal that was disallowed. In my memory, you were on the halfway line.
I was in my own half because I was so tired. I couldn't run anymore. I thought, no, I'm just going to hit this. And I knew I was in my own half. And if it had been VAR, I think that would have been given.
I remember you got booked for that. And even as a young lad, I thought that's got to be one of the cruelest things in the modern game, surely. Yeah. I mean, you got booked for what I thought was an amazing piece of skill.
I know, and I did have a few harsh words to say to the referee, I must admit. He was perhaps valid in giving me a yellow card for that.
Well, that game, Dave Carroll scored the goal that we all talk about, that amazing dribble. But a lot of Wycombe fans think the best goal was Dave Carroll's first one. And I think you've got the assist for that, an amazing bit of vision. Wycombe played some good stuff that day.
We played great stuff. I mean, it was funny because John Beck, their manager, Preston manager, wanted to sign me. And I wouldn't go. I had the choice of Preston or Wycombe. And I picked Wycombe straight away because John Beck had a reputation in them days for playing the long ball game from when he was at Cambridge, and I knew it wouldn't suit me. So it was more pleasing that it was against John Beck as well, in a way.
And Gareth Ainsworth, who you're his hero, he was on the pitch for Preston that day too.
He was, wasn't he? He was, yeah. I mean, funnily enough, somebody sent me a photo about a month ago of me celebrating the goal, and just behind me, he stood David Moyes. He was supposed to be marking me. That made me laugh.
Yeah, he doesn't look too happy. I saw him on Match of the Day last night. He wasn't too happy then either. So
no. No, but I remember Gareth playing in that game as well. I do, and also there was a left back, Chris Sully, for Preston. I played with him at Blackburn as well, so I knew a few of their players.
Well, I didn't realise you had the choice between Preston and Wycombe. Well, after Wembley that day, then you clearly made the right decision.
I did, yes, and obviously I was very pleased with the decision I made. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed my time down at Wycombe, especially under Martin O'Neill. It went a bit wrong. I wouldn't say just for me when Alan Smith came in. I think it went wrong for the football club in a way, and it was a bit of a tough time then.
Following Martin O'Neill would have been tricky for anybody, but did he try and change too much, Alan Smith? There was a lot of players that had been around for a long time, and I know a lot of the fans were quite upset by how they appeared to have been treated. Yeah,
he did try to change things too much. He wanted to do things his way. I would say the majority of the players didn't really buy into it, and we just struggled a bit under his management. And he froze me out completely, and I finished up going to Torquay on loan.
I remember asking a few Wycombe fans when we had a chat and said, all right, we're going to get you on the podcast. And I said, any Wycombe fans who want anything to ask Simon? A lot of them have sent me tales of seeing you in the Hourglass in that Alan Smith season, sort of about 2:30 on a match day in your tracksuit.
More than likely.
I'm guessing that's when he froze. You'd already been frozen out by that point. So match days, you were in with the fans.
I was, yes. I was in with the fans all the time. I mean, I've done that all my career. Even at Blackburn, I used to drink with the fans after the game and stuff like that, and that's the way it was in them days. I mean, it's completely changed nowadays, even at Wycombe's level. You don't finish a game and go into the boozy, you don't. It's all fitness now and stuff like that, and I think I'd struggle nowadays after the game.
That was going to be my next question. Where would you see Simon Garner in today's game with sort of energy drinks and doing Pilates?
Oh, no, he wouldn't be doing Pilates. He'd be finishing the game and he'd be lighting the fag up and having a pint somewhere still.
A lot of Wycombe fans said they remember you sort of you'd be subbed off, score a goal, get subbed off about 75 minutes. Then all the fans would steam into the beer suite and you'd already be a couple in, I think.
Well, I would be, yeah. I remember playing a game away. It was an FA Cup game. I don't know if it's somewhere like Cheshire or somewhere like that. And I scored a hat-trick in it and Martin took me off, but the dugout was on the opposite side to where the dressing rooms were. So I just waved it and I said, I'm going down the tunnel. I just went straight down the tunnel. There was no way I was walking all the way across the pitch and back again. So I just went straight down the tunnel, got a fag and come out and watched the rest of the game in my kit.
These definitely were different times, weren't they, to where we are today?
Oh, definitely.
Do you think it's better back then? I think a lot of our Wycombe fans might think it was.
I think it was in a way. I think the players were closer to the fans in them days. At Wycombe's level, although they're in the Championship now, there'll be a big change again. It's the higher the level you go, the more it's more money orientated, and it's about making money nowadays, and that's part of the game that I don't like.
Wycombe are really seeing that now. I think they're the smallest budget in the Championship by about 10 million.
I'd have thought so as well. I'd have thought so. It's going to be tough, but if they can keep Gareth there and keep faith in him, because they're not going to win loads of games this season, but they're going to win games. And if they can get a little run together, they'll be all right.
Well, fingers crossed for that. I've got to ask you about your partnership with Cyril Regis at Wycombe in that it was the third tier under Martin O'Neill. I think, was it a combined age of like 75 or something, you two up front?
Yes, I was glad he came because I think he was older than me.
He did a lot of the running though, didn't he?
He did a lot of running. He's a great player, Cyril. And we both lived in Birmingham at the time, and we used to travel down together, go home together, have days off together, and we used to socialise together as well in Birmingham. So, not just a great footballer, he's a great guy, Cyril was. Sadly missed.
Yeah, very sadly missed indeed. But what a combination that was. I think the press made a big deal of it at the time, saying, who are these two old boys Wycombe have got up top together. But it paid off, didn't it? I mean, there was some wonderful moments between the two of you.
There was, yeah. I mean, we more or less gelled straight away. We knew what each other was going to do. Well, I did anyway. I let him do the running, and I'll stand in the box and wait for the balls to come. But he was a great fella, Cyril. He was a brilliant footballer as well. He was fit as anything. I mean, he was as fit as some of the younger kids there. He just looked after his body so well. He was unreal, and he was a pleasure to play with.
Going back to your sort of, the smoking and the drinking and stuff, I mean, you were that good, Simon. I think a lot of fans have thought this over the years. That if you'd have maybe sort of knocked a bit of that on the head, you could have gone and played at the real top level, even made an indent for England. Is that something you've ever thought about?
No, it's not. No, I mean, I was what I was. I think it might have made me bloody worse if I stopped smoking or something like that. I don't know. I smoked all through my career. It didn't, luckily enough, I still scored the goals. I could still get around the pitch. And as you get older, you read the game better. Your legs aren't as good as what they were, but you can read the game better and you know where to be and where the ball's going to go. So it gets a bit easier, but it gets harder as well because your legs can't just do that little bit extra.
Football now for you, are you still involved? I know you do a bit for BBC Lancashire on their commentaries and stuff. Do you get to many games?
Not that many, because I'm down south, obviously. I watch their games when they're down in London and go and co-commentate on them. But I don't go up to Blackburn that often, not as much as I'd like to, really.
Well, you're always welcome at Adams Park. And I think,
I know that. Yeah, I'm always welcome there.
I think you'd quite enjoy meeting Pete Couhig, one of the Americans that's involved in running the club now. He likes a beer as well. I think he'd buy you a couple.
Oh, that's all right, then. I'll come down and see him.
Well, Simon, thank you so much for your time for Ringing the Blues. Like I say, Wycombe legend. And we've got to ask one last question. Your favourite all-time Wycombe goal?
The one at Wembley. In the playoff final, the one against Preston at Wembley.
I'll tell you what my one was. I think we beat Huddersfield with 10 men. Gary Patterson had been sent off. And I think you scored the winner in that game about 10 minutes to go. And I remember
it well. Everybody thought it was a foul. The ball had stopped. Everybody thought it was a foul. It was just outside the box. I just run up to it and smacked it in the back of the net because everybody else had stopped and I carried on playing because the ref didn't blow.
That's
and
right.
The pleasing thing was it was against Neil Warnock, who had given me a bit in the first game away at Huddersfield. So I enjoyed that.
That's not like Neil Warnock to give people, Chip, is it?
It's not, is it? Not at all.
Well, Simon, all the best to you, and we'll keep in touch and hopefully see you at Adams Park one day. And I think there'll be a long queue of people trying to buy you a beer.
That's great. Thank you, Phil.
Many of us may have been wondering just how Wycombe can compete this season. The gulf between League One and the Championship felt pretty wide on the full-time whistle at Ewood Park. Well, in 2016-17, Burton Albion got up to the Championship for the very first time and stayed there. But how did they do it? Well, to reveal all, we have Wycombe fan and football commentator Joe Shennan, who covered the Brewers for BBC Derby, and he saw it all firsthand. How you doing, Joe?
Yeah, good, Phil. Yeah, good, thanks. Good to speak to you.
Yeah, you too, mate. Well, I think Wycombe fans, after the 5-0 defeat at Ewood Park, a few of them are scratching their heads thinking, just how are Wycombe going to compete in the Championship? It was a few seasons ago now, but Burton, they got up there for the first time and they stayed there. How did they do it? What was the secret?
Well, look, the first thing is, Phil, and it's going to sound like a massive cliche to say it, but it really is a season in the Championship for a club like us, and was the same for a club like Burton, it is a marathon and not a sprint. And I would really encourage people, after two disappointing results, the Rotherham game, you watch it back and you think we should get something out of that, and obviously it's a 90th minute, last-minute home defeat, and then Blackburn obviously very disappointing, but Blackburn are a very good side, and defeats are going to happen in the Championship, heavy defeats are going to happen in the Championship. We are going to lose games, we might lose a lot of games, but there's always hope across the season, and I think that one of the key things that I would stress straight away is not to panic, that it is a marathon, not a sprint. There's a heck of a long way to go. A lot happens across the Championship season. Sometimes you think you're certain to stay up, sometimes you think you're certain to go down. There's a lot of ebb and flow, but I think it's far too early to make any big judgments just yet.
Well, I'm looking at those fixtures for Burton in that 2016-17 season. Their first game at the Championship level, a tremendous local derby. They lost 4-3 to Nottingham Forest. The second league game, they lost at home to Bristol City 2-1. So they lost their first two games.
Exactly. And, the Forest game was, in some ways, a great performance, but there was a lot to be desired in terms of the defensive display. I think there were already Burton fans concerned after that. But the more disappointing one was that second game of the season, as you mentioned, because they were beaten by Bristol City, 90th minute winner, and it left everybody feeling very flat. And you're 2 games in, and all of a sudden you think, well, where are the first points going to come from? And as it happened, third game of the season, I think it was Sheffield Wednesday at home. Burton won that by 3-1. And suddenly everything started to flow from there. And it will be a case, and when Wycombe, when we pick up our first victory, and even when we pick up our first point, that first clean sheet, confidence starts to flow. There's still time in the transfer window to add 1 or 2 new players, wherever Gareth can, and wherever he thinks he's able to add new players. And of course, recruitment is something that is so important across the Championship season. We know we've got one of the lowest budgets in the league, so we have to think carefully in terms of that. But you're absolutely right. Burton lost their first 2 games of the season. They had spells throughout the rest of the Championship season where they lost games. And you've got to keep your nerve and you've got to stick with it. We are going to lose games this season. There's going to be a lot of ebb and flow. And it might go right down to the final few weeks. It might go down to the final day. But there's always hope, I think, with the tenacity of this team, the spirit that we all know is in the dressing room, the spirit that we've got with the manager and the coaching staff. The one thing I would stress, as I say, it's by no means time to panic.
Talking about recruitment, a lot of Wycombe fans saying, we're a bit light in midfield, with injuries and suspensions not helping there either at the moment. But even when they're back, I think a lot of Wycombe fans thinking we should be strengthening certain parts of the pitch. How did Burton go about their sort of recruitment in the summer and then subsequently in the January? I mean, I don't recall them throwing loads of money around.
They didn't, and it's not easy to do, Phil, as you well know. And I'm not just talking about the respective budgets that Burton and Wycombe had and have, which are going to be very similar in terms of the context of, levels of budget in the league. We know that we're going to be bottom 2, probably, maybe the lowest budget in the league. And I think that you've got to recruit carefully and you've got to recruit diligently, and bear in mind that, some players will be hesitant to go to a club that they know is going to be battling against relegation because they don't know what league they're going to be in next season. So there's a lot that Gareth is going to be having to fight against and battle against and work with at this time. But Burton, I think, did, similarly to what we've done so far this season. You keep the nucleus of the squad that got you up because the spirit is there, and in some areas the quality is there. You've got to add carefully and diligently, and you've got to, take a gamble on 1 or 2 players. Burton took a gamble on Jackson Irvine, who had been playing in Scotland up until that point at Ross County. He came and was one of the stars of the Championship season. You've got to use the loan market carefully. We at Wycombe know all about how to use the loan market effectively, and I think everyone would acknowledge there's 1 or 2 areas, maybe in the central midfield positions as well, where we do need to get some depth, and we had Namdi Ofabor in last season. He was such a big success, but there are other players like that out there, and Burton used it to their effect, to good effect later on in the season. They brought in Michael Kitely, they brought in Corley Woodrow and Lasse Christensen from Fulham, 2 hungry young players in on loan who, in that last kind of 15, 20 games of the season, really gave them a lot of momentum that they needed to stay up. So you stick with the squad that you've got in large part. You add to that carefully, free transfers. You look at players that are experienced at Championship level. You take a gamble on a couple of players, Jackson Irvine, the one at Burton being a good example, and you use the loan market. We know how effective Gareth Ainsworth is at using the loan market. And again, I think in terms of bringing players in, there's no need to panic yet. There's still time in this transfer window to bring players in. I'm sure Gareth will want to, but we also have to be realistic. He's working with one of the lowest budgets, if not the lowest budget in the league. And the added complication, as I say, is that players who, may want to come to the club are going to be hesitant because we know we're going to be fighting to stay up, and players are often reluctant to commit if they're not sure what league a team is going to be in next season. So there's a lot that Gareth's working with behind the scenes, but I'm sure that he's looking at it diligently and carefully. And Burton proved that if you had the right kind of player with the right kind of character, you go under the radar, you take a couple of gambles, you use the loan market well, it can be done.
And how about the fans? How important were the fans for Burton Albion? Because there may have been a few wobbles at the start, but when results started to get on the board, how important were the fans for that momentum?
Massively, Phil, massively. And this is obviously the thing that counts against us this season, unfortunately, at the moment, with the circumstances that we're in. And we don't know, what is going to happen in terms of supporters. I doubt that we'll have full stadiums come the end of the season, sadly. But the fans were crucial. And I think most importantly, most Burton fans, the vast majority, recognise the scale of the achievement, first of all, in terms of getting to the Championship. And also the task in terms of staying up. Survival for Burton was a much better achievement than getting to the league in the first place, because of how difficult it is to stay up across a Championship season. And, fans had better get ready for a bit of a roller coaster, I have to say. I come back to it. There's a lot of ebb and flow. We may go on a run of winning games, and there'll be portions across this season where we lose 3 or 4 in a row. And, you've got to stick with the team, you've got to stick with the players, really, and you've got to stick with the manager, because there are some remarkably, historical clubs in this division, clubs with far bigger budgets, clubs with huge ambitions of reaching the Premier League. I think the Championship is one of the most competitive leagues in Europe. We all know that. But I think it's massively important for supporters to kind of create that siege mentality, get behind the club, realise that the odds are against us, but that it's not impossible. And if you do that, you create a really kind of positive, dynamic atmosphere. I think, obviously, the lack of crowds is a difficult one, but one thing that it certainly helped Burton with was the home record, which is such an important part of staying in the Championship. If you can be solid at home and pick up points at home, as Burton did across the season, they shot 1 or 2 teams as well, then you give yourself a really good chance.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the home form. There's some big results at the Pirelli that really kept them up. Burton 2, Norwich 1. I think they beat Wolves as well at that stadium as well. And yep. I think this again plays back into the lack of fans. Is that Wycombe was such a fortress at Adams Park, wasn't it? And it's not going to happen again this season, perhaps. Certainly not until Christmas, I don't think. But Wycombe have got a bit of a trump card in Adams Park, but they can't really play it. That's going to hamper them, isn't it?
Well, it's a concern, isn't it, the lack of supporters? Adams Park, presumably, if we were allowed to fill it and if this was normal circumstances, would be close to full, if not full, most weeks, and especially for the bigger games. And I think for Burton it was a great advantage, Phil, because, the Pirelli, with all respect, it's a relatively new ground, the facilities are quite good, but most of the Championship clubs, players in some of those teams, you mentioned Wolves, you mentioned Norwich, Burton beat Leeds towards the end of the season, they drew with Aston Villa at home as well. Most of those players were not kind of used to the smaller surroundings, the terracing. We've got a terrace, obviously, at Adams Park, the size of the dressing rooms, the size and scale of the stadium itself. Players aren't used to this. And I think that Wycombe can certainly play on that, whether there are supporters in the ground or not. They can play on that kind of atmospheric advantage that maybe they have. The fact that some of these players, especially players that have played in the Premier League, will find these surroundings quite unusual, not necessarily in cup games, but these are league matches, so that will feel strange to them. And if we can, before the end of the season, or certainly, if these EFL pilots for spectators continue to go well, and hopefully they do, then we can start to play on that home advantage even more. Once you've got fans in the stadium, you've got an atmosphere and you've got something a bit different. Home form was so vital for Burton. If their home form hadn't been so impressive, they wouldn't have stayed up. And I think the first thing that you start with when you're a club just promoted to the Championship is you look at your home games and you say, right, we're going to make this place a fortress. We're going to become really hard to beat. We're going to surprise teams. We're going to shock teams. We're an unknown quantity. Nobody knows what to expect. Everybody, if anything, thinks they're going to turn up and beat us. And that was exactly the position that Burton were in. And they used that to their advantage. And they said, nobody expects us to do anything, but we're going to surprise a few teams here. And they did.
Looking at this run of fixtures again, Wycombe famously haven't really had great Christmases of late. And looking at that Burton season, from the 10th of December to the end of January pretty much, 9 games, Burton lost 8 of them. I think they got a win the game before New Year's Day away at Rotherham. But that was a very sticky run indeed. In a time of year where the games are coming thick and fast, that runs like that, they can really undo a season. Wycombe have struggled over the festive period. Was there any doubts in then that you're thinking, wow, the winter's set in, this is going to be a long second half to the season?
Yeah, absolutely, Phil. And this is what we'll have to get used to at times this season. This is why it's so important to try and keep the faith, as much as you can, and dig in with the players and with the management, with the staff. This is not the time to be deserting the team or deserting the players or showing doubts in anybody. Burton, as you say, had that horrible run across the winter. That Rotherham victory was actually their first away win of the season, which shows you how important their home form had been in terms of keeping them in it. And then once they got that first away victory, you could see the confidence kind of come back to the players away from home. So it's important that you get that first away win, obviously, as soon as possible. But yeah, there were times where I think that the one time I was really concerned was it was around this sort of time, early January time. Burton lost in the last minute away at Cardiff City. They dropped into the relegation zone at that point. And it really felt like they were on a terrible run. Momentum wasn't with them. They were in trouble. And Nigel Clough, the manager of Burton at the time, reacted before the end of the transfer window by bringing in those players that I mentioned earlier. Michael Kitely, who was very experienced on a free transfer, scored some really important goals. And the two Fulham lads on loan, Christensen and Woodrow, who just gave Burton a different dynamic and a bit of spark going forward. And everything changed. But when you're looking to survive in the Championship, look, it's a 46-game season. You are going to go on runs of defeats. Wycombe will have, disappointing moments, disappointing months across the season. But, if they can get victories and if they can get draws and pick up points in the interim, then, they're capable of staying up. I've seen it happen before. I've seen it happen at a club in Burton Albion who are completely written off, had never been at the Championship level before, had to add to the squad across the course of the season. Really, the team that started the season was not ready for the Championships. It's similar to Wycombe in that sense. They had to add to the squad slowly but surely across the season. They won their home games, and it was a scrap, and it went right to the penultimate day of the season. And, if we're going to stay up at Wycombe, that will probably be the case this time. So, buckle up. It's going to be hard, but it's going to be fun. And there'll be some great moments along the way, and there'll be some disappointing ones too. And there'll be moments where, we feel like we're close to going down, or we feel like, nothing can turn around. But you've got to be ready for the ebb and flow. That's what the Championship's all about.
Joe, this is the perfect tonic for us Wycombe fans to hear you talk like this. This is great. It's been done before, guys. It can happen again. And it nearly did happen again, because I remember Crawley, the season after, I think about 15 minutes to go of the season, Burton were above the dotted line, and then Crawley were relegated with almost the last kick of the season. But they nearly did it again, which would have been an even bigger achievement.
Oh, absolutely. And it was a strange one because, I was no longer covering Burton by that time, but their form across that second season was less impressive. And actually, where I think they thoroughly deserved to stay up in their first season, the second one, I think, over the course of the season, you end up where you end up anyway. But I think their performances, didn't merit staying up. But as you say, they came so close anyway. And staying up twice in a row would have been a monumental achievement. Burton Albion have, much less of a Football League history than we do. But I think, again, it's important to remember, you talk about Martin O'Neill, and the history that we've had in the Football League. It's less than 30 years, which should tell you all you need to know in terms of kind of the scale of achievement that we've had and the scale of achievement that we've enjoyed. But it can be done. It's difficult, and it's probably against the odds, and the odds are not necessarily in our favour, but it can be done, and it's not about hope necessarily, and it's not about kind of luck. There are proven ways that you can survive in this league as a smaller club. When you have a manager like Gareth Ainsworth, who's unpredictable and will create the siege mentality, but the spirit of the squad that we've got, add a bit of quality. And I think, we've seen quality's been added in certain areas. Tapazzoli, I think, is a really good signing. Daryl Horgan looked really good. I was at the Brentford game and for Talk Sport, and Daryl Horgan was excellent. And I think there's more quality that needs to be added and more reinforcements that need to be added. And the loan market in January, Phil, is going to be really key, as we've seen at Wycombe so many times over the years. But you get your home form right. You start picking up one or two results away from home. Be prepared to lose games. And that old mantra of don't get too high and don't get too low, because the Championship is the most unpredictable league just about in world football, I think. Every week anybody can beat anybody. And it's so easy to go on a run of wins or a run of defeats. And I think it's about keeping that equilibrium and keeping level-headed and reminding ourselves that 5-0 at Blackburn, yeah, disappointing, tough, but, they're an excellent side. And it's not going to be the Blackburn away that is going to decide whether we stay up this season. It's going to be the games at home and the teams around us away. And I think if we all get a grasp of that and we all get behind the team, then it could be a really exciting season.
Wise words, Joe. That's fantastic. I'm sure everyone's feeling a lot better already. Where can people hear you on the radio, mate? You're covering all sorts of games these days.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice and busy, thankfully. And as you know, mate, we're very lucky to be able to go to these games at the moment, and in these strange situations. And I must say, it's not the same without supporters. It really isn't. And it's easy for me to say that, but everybody feeds off the atmosphere. The players, the staff, and us broadcasters, and ultimately, football's not sustainable financially without fans either. So I can't wait till we have supporters back again. But yeah, working on the EFL and the Premier League for Talk Sport and Talk Sport 2, so having a really good time of that. And they're great leagues to cover. I think they're the best in the world, and I think the Championship in particular. I can't wait to, at some point, do my first Wycombe game in the Championship, hopefully. So hopefully that won't be too far off.
Well, I look forward to sitting in the press boxes either at Adams Park or somewhere in one of the glittering halls of these Championship stadiums that we're now heading to week on week. Joe, thank you very much, mate, and we'll see you soon.
No problem. Thanks, mate. Great to speak to you.
Right, that's your lot for this week. Many thanks to Vital Lens, Super Simon Garner, Joe Shennan, and you for listening in. Come on, you Blues.